This is going to be a wild one. I really think it is going to be a wild one. I'm quite interested to see there's many Joby bulls show up, just because I know a lot of people really don't like us in the Joby community, but it will be quite interesting. My name's Liam, one of the Hustle Bros here. We are doing a wild debate. I don't think I've seen this before. Archer Aviation versus Joby Aviation. Which is better? Have your say. It's completely free. Just jump across to X, go on Spaces, and you should be able to speak with us. Now, guys, on Spaces, please raise your hand if you want to speak, just so everyone's not speaking at the same time. Also, while we're running this, but I am completely exposing myself here. It only takes one absolute idiot to mess this whole thing up. So please just be respectful to each other. Look, I know it's going to be a sensitive topic for some people. Some people are diehard Archer, some people are diehard Joby. Just try and be respectful. Let everyone say their point. And look, if I cut you off or mute you, it's not being rude. I just don't want it to go on way too long. You will always have a chance to speak again, so just put your hand straight back up and we'll get back to you. But Dylan, how are you getting on, my guy?
Sorry about that. Muted. We're doing well. Thanks, Liam. It's been a nice weekend, and honestly, I feel like I always say it's been a lot of eVTOL talk, but doing well, family's well. And it's really cool to actually get the Archer and Joby side together. But thanks for asking. How you doing? Doing well?
Not too bad. I think it was quite a nice little stream yesterday.
Yeah.
Defending ourselves against Archer Aviation Bears. So
Yeah.
no, I quite liked it. The back and forward started off a little bit slow. Everyone respectful. They got a lot more passionate towards the end. But you know what? Everyone ended coming off friends. So no, I was quite happy about that. Hopefully it'll run the exact same way today. Now, guys, the format is going to be, I have a few different headings here. Feel free to jump in, raise your hand, have your say, defend your case. And I'm not trying to censor anyone. Defend your case as passionately as you want. I know it's close to the heart of many, many people. Guys on YouTube, I just need to double check with anything. Can you hear Dylan when he's speaking through Spaces? Please let me know in the comments.
And this is me. Check. Just in case. Yeah, what's up, brother?
We know you were a massive Archer Aviation bull. Yes, we know you follow Joby Aviation. So I know you're probably going to take the stance on Archer Aviation. So what I'll do, I'll say the first topic and I'll let you open up with the start of this. So I think will be pretty similar to yesterday. The first topic is, who is the better CEO? Adam Goldstein or Joe Ben Bever? I'll let you go.
Better CEO. I think that's a great question, Liam. And again, thank you for opening this forum. I think this is going to be an awesome night. Who is the better CEO, Adam or Joe Ben? For the current state of the eVTOL industry, I'm going to say that the better CEO is Adam Goldstein. Now, the reason I'm going to say that, first, let me give some props to Joe Ben. I think he's an amazing CEO. I think somebody that can turn a passion and really turn a unique vision and a futuristic vision and put the time, sweat, the blood, the effort into his company and the amount of years that he's done. I applaud him. I really do think that Joe Ben has done incredible things to give the eVTOL opportunity. I'm sorry, to give the eVTOL industry an opportunity for forward push and forward momentum. Also with Joe Ben, at certain times having to fill in as like CFO roles and stuff like that. So, I mean, he showed in a multitude of angles in which that he can own and operate his company. With that said, I find Adam Goldstein to be a businessman. And I feel like in the industry right now where we're at, we have a emerging industry that is not known to many people. Even the investors that are currently in the different eVTOL stocks, I think are learning more and more each day about what's going on inside of their company and other companies as well. When we have the likes of the entrance into the UAE, when we have talks around the EIPP, when we have the talks of sale of aircraft, as well as a defense business unit for their eVTOL company. I think you can look at all four of those and put a check mark on Adam Goldstein being the first. Now, with UAE, we have confirmed that Joby has done a piloted flight in Dubai. Now, that would be prior to Archer Aviation. Now, but if you do go and look back, the correspondence has really started with Adam in 2023 with conversations with the UAE and being able to bring a product such as the eVTOL to market. So again, I think they were a bit industry leading and seeing that there was a brick wall inside of the FAA, and to break through that, we may have to look at some other aviation authority municipalities who may be able to adopt and accept this form and mode of future transportation into their ecosystem. So it looked like the UAE was one that first got on board, and I give credit to Adam opening those doors. To the defense, Adam, he pivoted a bit in his business in Q3 of 2024, where he was able to announce Archer Defense. At that time, we were getting a lot of talk around the partnership of Andrew. And so not only has Adam been able to secure a partnership with one of the, again, most kind of forward-leading, future-leading defense companies that a lot of people are looking for a hot IPO after, he not only was able to get that, there's also been product delivery on that side of the defense partnership as well, which was leading in the industry prior to other competitors such as Joby getting an L3 Harris deal for being able to really have the programs of record that are going to relate to sale of aircraft to DoD. Again, and then I would say business unit economics. Through the years, I would say through at least past the 2 years, Archer has been able to maintain a top liquidity position in the eVTOL market, and that has come not just through the partnerships with Stellantis and having some of those trenches of money coming in. I think it's came at dilution to the investors, but with a long-term goal where he's being able to set himself up to have his company be capital efficient, capital effective, to have something like a Hawthorne Airport come to sale and to have $126 million be something that is not going to take a quarter away from the next year of business of service to his company. And I guess I'll stop there. I'm sure I've talked too much, but yeah, I'm going to go with Adam on this one for the state of where the eVTOL industry is at this current state of time.
Dylan, thank you so much for that. I don't think that's any surprise to any of us that you chose Adam Goldstein. There, guys, anyone that wants to speak, anyone that wants to counter that, whether you're bullish on Adam or you want to jump across and say Joe Ben is the better CEO, do jump across to X Spaces, raise your hand and do have your say. Look, Adam really does excite me in everything he does. He's brushing shoulders with not only the likes of Secretary Duffy constantly, but his ability to get them partnerships off of the line, the likes of your Palantirs, your Andrews, your United Airlines, it really does excite me. The only thing that does sort of annoy me a little bit on Adam at the moment, I think he's gone a little bit too far over social media, where he's starting to push. He's starting to attack Joby now, so I think I'd like to see him tone down a little bit on that. Then, speaking about Joe Ben is, look, he's a visionary. He was the main man, the guy that brought this concept to fruition. We can't take away from anything he's doing. He is most certainly the leader in this race at the moment. I think it's a little bit, I don't know, is it taken away from what they're doing coming after the main competition with a lawsuit just before this whole industry even starts kicking off? I don't know. That's each to their own opinion. But Chris, you have your hand raised there. Do you?
What I would so we don't really have too much Joby representation right here. So I'm gonna be the Joby bull, and I'm gonna battle both y'all. How about that? If nobody wants to come up and take the Joby side, I'll take it for them.
Yeah, that's all good. Go for it.
I love it, Chris.
Joe Ben.
I love it.
Okay. To first start off, I would like to go to the late 20th century, early 21st century philosopher by the name of Lil Wayne, who said, "Real G's move in silence, like lasagna." Like Joe Ben is not a PR man; he's an engineer, and he's been executing. They were first to market, so of course they are cutting through the wind for all the other kind of like fast follower competitors. But they are executing on their mission. They're the furthest along in their certification timeline. They are the furthest along as far as FAA and also testing schedules and actually demonstrating transition flight on a consistent basis. They have partnerships with NVIDIA to bring in the AGX store for AI integration into their platform. So they might beat them to the punch in automation. The other major acquisition through Blade gives them a helicopter network of vertiports throughout the East Coast and potentially through Europe as like a button-on attachment in order to kind of like complement the strategy of operating their own kind of like service bureau, from app to the vertiport to plane to service to management. They're going to own much more of the pie, and that's kind of like the strategic differentiation between Joby and Archer. Is whereas Archer wants to work with third-party operators, Joben wants to own the whole slice, and Joby would like to own the whole slice, and they're probably going to be the earliest to market as far as the actual like rollout of the eVTOL like air taxi perspective. So I think Joben's well in a like I think inarguably ahead. Do you think we could agree upon that point?
Yeah, I think at this current moment in time, I honestly do believe Joe Ben and Joby are ahead. I think you've hit on a nice point there with the IGX4 platform. And I think Joe Ben said it very nicely in the earnings call, the most recent earnings call. He's actually hoping for that automation to take place within the next 5 years. Dylan, you have your hand up there. Go for it.
Yeah, and Chris, great bear debate, and I hate right now that you got to be the bear because I love you so much. But no, it's very
No,
honest
I'm
comments.
just a different bull. I'm just a different colored bull, my friend. I'm a Joby bull here.
That is fair. That is true. But no, I love the comments, and I think they're great for the conversation as well, and factual. So I think again, the only counter I would have to kind of Joe Ben and the CEO. And yes, I think it is. Yeah, I will definitely agree with Joby being ahead in the cert timeline and first in the path to market. I do find it interesting sometimes where there's been some Joby guidance where they were looking to, I believe, entry into service for the UAE in Abu Dhabi, UAE in Dubai.
Abu Dhabi or Dubai.
Yeah. Sorry about that. And look, so I believe they were going to go for Dubai as early as Q1 of 26, which now that timeline looks to be pushed back to Q3 of 26. So it's just kind of interesting.
Archer's timeline.
So initially, Archer, I believe, they kind of pushed theirs Q3 back a little bit. For my knowledge, Joby was on the Q1 26 trajectory still up until, I don't know, maybe a month to 2 months ago, maybe about towards the earnings call, when that thing got pushed to Q3 of 26. So with certain just policy alignments, I find it very interesting just the amount of years again that Joben has been able to.
But now compare that to Archer's timeline for a UAE or Dubai rollout. When's their quarterly plans of rolling out services?
Yeah, Q3 to 26. So just saying that it's
so Joby moved back their timeline in line with Archer's timeline. So we could be seeing a head-to-head.
Well, correct. Just in the sense of if both timeline guidance are met by that time, because again, with Archer, to be transparent, we still need to see the VTOL to have that, unless they're going to be doing CTOL operations, which again kind of changed that conversation. But yeah, that would be Joby moving that back to the Q3, where Archer had kind of already moved that back to Q3 of 26.
But could we see further delays? And I'm glad you brought up the vertical takeoff and landing. Like if we look at the what was the Salina Airport demo where we have Joby demonstrating full transition, full vertical takeoff, full lapping around in Archer's backyard. And what was Archer able to demonstrate during that?
Yeah, so
that air show?
Yeah. So just give me a minute or two to finish out the thought on. I'll go right to what you're talking about, and then maybe wrap back around to a little bit. But the yeah, so to the air show, I think again, there's been a few things from Adam, even for me as a bull on Archer and big Adam Goldstein fan, where the honesty for me has been a little bit not as transparent. This would go back to the Q1 call, 2025 Q1 call, where again it was saying that we would have a piloted flight within days. Then the Jimmy Fallon thing happened, and then we, it was still about another week and a half to 2 weeks until the piloted flight did take place, which ended up being the CTOL flight. So that's what you're talking about as well at the Salinas Air Show. So, I think there are times maybe in the investor community that we can look to connect the dots on what we hope and want to have from Archer. But when we go back and actually,
the problem is, I think, from a CEO perspective, to take it back to the original crux of this debate, is I find that Adam Goldstein tends to try to give more people more dots to try to connect it to some type of a future momentum that might not be there. Like I think he very well characterizes the open air around the potential of their company in order to let people go wild with their expectations without him being in violation of FINRA and spelling out the expectations. I think he's a much better salesman. And if I'm comparing CEOs, I often look at the space companies. Look at Chris Kemp compared to Peter Beck. I see Joe Ben closer to Peter Beck on the scale, and I see Adam Goldstein closer to Chris Kemp. If we're comparing Astra to Rocket Lab, I just think that there's a lot more of the salesmanship, a lot more of the VC, a lot more of the fast and loose, with kind of the Y Combinator kind of approach of marketing, where you can definitely try to fake it till you make it. Whether I see Archer as a little bit more of the faking it till they make it kind of a perspective, whereas I see Joby more as on the making it until you break it.
Well,
kind of a
so
perspective.
there's a great point on the break it. So I mean, again, test flights, those are great things, and Adam has continued to talk that he's not going to bring a plane really to have a pilot in it, or it's really about safety for him. If we can look at 2022, you can go back to SEC filings with Joby, where maybe at times they may have rushed certain flight tests, and they've had accidents that other eVTOL companies have not had. Also with Joby starting earlier, but I just want to kind of like finish one point, because sorry, Chris, I just really haven't even been able to touch back on like point one. So I just don't want to get too much of hearing what you're saying, but without really being able to rebuttal. So like we say with the Blade acquisition, yeah, it's going to be the first thing. It was the first time that the eVTOL company was showing revenue on the books. And again, to keep in mind as they're doing that, as they look to integrate their S4, none of these aircraft, be it the S4 or the Midnight, are FICI certified. So when your primary location that you're looking to, ride your Blade out and do that, if you're looking in your Northeast corridor, that's not necessarily at this present time the most optimal area to be flying these on an everyday basis. So it's really 72 and sunny, which these aircraft are more primed to fly in.
What for FICI certification? What's the engineering barrier there?
To make sure it's FICI certified.
No, I mean to get FICI, to capture FICI certification. Let's say Joban and
make
Archer.
Sure that you have the ability to de-ice your wings, to make sure that you have all the
through
ability
either
to,
like electric convection or like a vibratory response or some type of emotion. So you can either do it through like a kind of like a vibrate, or if you have control over different kind of like systems in order to like kind of have a resonance in order to shatter the ice, or you can use an electric like an induction or a heat basis, right?
To my knowledge, there would be, yes, different forms, and it would be then, up to the design team to see how that fits in to the current, basically, aerodynamic structure of the aircraft, and then, any extra weight that's going to put on and payload change,
Is that in their certification timelines?
The FICI certified, basically all I've heard on Joby, right, all I can give you is that they're neither are FICI certified, and that that's not. So again, it's something where it doesn't mean, from my knowledge, it doesn't mean that you can't pass a type certification. It's just going to be where can you operate those aircraft at.
If you're going through a certification timeline, or a certification process. You need to have like your engine system kind of certified. You need to have your airframe certified. You need to have. There are a lot of steps that you need to go through in order to get your FAA certification. And FIKI might be on the roadmap, but it's just not going to be a requirement, because to add the FIKI certification, like kind of componentry, is not a fundamental change in the airframe or the engine or anything else that needs to be certified right now, that are like, that's much more pressing
So
concern.
you're talking about like a STC, and again, I think what you're talking about in the pressing concern, it's just more relating in maybe to where each CEO has kind of started to plant their flags and really built out their, continuing to build out their property management group relationships, and kind of the business model on the civilian side that each of the CEOs, and the direction that each CEO is kind of taking that company in. So for let's see, for Archer, both being partnered with the Cronky Group, it well fits in with the Innovate 28 plan that was initially rolled out by the FAA. With that also being an area of much higher density population. So you're having basically Adam go and say, hey, if we can conquer LA, we can win the world, because if we can fly in this congested area, as well as, go for it.
Well, my perspective, just to circle back to FIKI, is right now Joby and Archer are in a race for type certification, for TIA certification. And like, Joby is essentially winning that race right now. And Archer is kind of writing off FIKI certification is not necessary, because they're going to be below the Sun Belt. They're going to be operating in LA, maybe Florida as well. They're going to be operating in areas where you don't need FIKI certification. But like, how much of that is a serviceable, addressable market that they might be leaving out at by not capturing that? I do believe Joby does have plans to capture FIKI certification, but they need to be type certified with a lot larger component sets, which is a higher priority right now, which they are leading.
Which is fine, and I agree to that. I would say in your general like 1, 2, 3 bullet point of where Archer is looking to first enter servicing market, I would say over the last 6 months or so, if not back it up to a year, you've kind of seen them maybe back away a little bit on that. Thank you, babe. Maybe they've backed away a little bit from the New York, like the was it like blank to JFK routes, and have kind of honed in first on the LA and the Miami area. So I'm not saying that they are going to be going and saying, no, we're looking not to have any sort of FIKI certification at any point in timeline. I'm just kind of giving kudos to finding 2 areas with also the EIPP, soon to roll out, where you have DeSantis kind of, what was it, 2 months ago or so, kind of giving nod to the eVTOL test track being in Florida. So, having either Tampa, Orlando, possibly Miami, or even if it was Tampa to Orlando, and really proving out the technology there. And then with all the flags that Archer's been putting in the kind of LA area as well, seeing if those are going to come to fruition. And then obviously seeing if there's going to be some kind of more open land areas, like I was saying yesterday, maybe somewhere in Ohio where, it's a little bit more of open space, but one of the states that still is more like, kind of like
you have Antelope in Ohio.
Yeah, it's like all it's like not many people think of Ohio, but you have all those like DoD players that have like main offices out there and like kind of all that good stuff. So I mean, again, I think it's just something to to be aware of, as and also I think it's like IFR. I might be getting the initials wrong, but Beta is, I believe, the only one that is IFR, and that's for the lightning strike. So again, could be different like you say, different priorities in the timeline of which component of the aircraft each company is trying to go through and get through TIA, and which part of the build they're in, and when they're building out the final process, which aircraft is going to be used for this part of TC and that part of TC and such. But I guess I just wanted to also mention that it's like you mentioned, Beck, Elon, 2 incredibly smart individuals who have also been able to, create very lucrative businesses, both off fundamentals and, with Tesla being able to get profitable, and then, Rocket Lab trading at a very high multiple, but, looking to be doing everything correct to, make themselves bring in the revenue and be profitable as well. So just really with Adam being the CEO, what I think he's done is, and I'm okay with this, and it's okay if, everybody is not. To me, one thing Adam has done is he's been okay. Obviously, he's not an engineer. He comes from, the background of business. And, he has basically trusted in Tom Muniz and a whole slew. I don't know why I don't have my cursor to go over, but like we were talking about yesterday, like Jeff Bauer, I think he's the chief engineer over there, and he comes from places such as the Aero, so just other engineer talent that's been picked up and been moved over to Archer. Just kind of curious in those ways where if you were to get them in a room or share some coffee with them, just be like, hey, what got you so interested in Archer that had you move on over. And then, of course, with the Lilium patents and such like that, I think it was like 6 months prior to that, they were even introducing some Lilium engineers and talent over to Archer.
So either way, that kind of patent portfolio is from a failed operation, correct?
Well, yeah, technically from a eVTOL that did, yeah, you could call it, yeah, they went insolvent. Yeah, sure.
So, but like just back to like if we're talking about which one is more investable for me, like a Joby versus Archer, I've back when I first made investments into the space, I put like an equal allocation into Joby and Archer, and I've been out of both plays and I've been much more successful in Joby than Archer as far as like my exits and my like overall run. But the main thing that I'm saying, if we're looking at an addressable market, we have Archer kind of moving towards profitability with acquisitions through Hawthorne, acquisitions through like kind of like Anduril, and so they're kind of making forward revenues, or they're trying to pull into the present some of the forward revenues that are projected. We have the military aspect of Archer, but how many military units is Archer flying right now?
So they had one delivered to a AFWERX program, but no, they don't have like the Joby where they have like two. I think it's Edwards.
Yeah, Edwards Air Force Base. So, yeah, Joby is flying right now with the military with a partnership with Lockheed Martin.
So again, and just for the transparency of it all, as I call Archer the middle child, I wonder if when a lot of the investment started and where it was at, it was kind of seeming like it was a neck-to-neck race. So, with me, again, if we're posing the question about the CEO, I think engineering timelines or when it's going to come to market, I guess is, might come up in another topic, but I'm really not that concerned with Joby being 6 months ahead in the build. And when we talk about a company to invest in, and maybe it'll come up later, it really, again, it's whatever view you have. So like you said, Chris, you were into the eVTOLs when they were making money, and now you're out, and it's just not your bag, and that's cool. But for others that are in the long-term hold, you got Joby selling, and even for a day trader, it just depends on, what everybody wants to do, but you got Joby selling at a 15-to-1 price to book ratio. So when you have about $1 billion in cash and not that much facility to liquidate and such, again, we're in a raging bull market. So I believe that the piloted flight in Dubai was a big catalyst that did help and sustain Joby's raise in their share price this year. But again,
so did the NVIDIA GTC little event that gave them a little bit of bump.
Sure. But all of that has really retraced to, I can go back to the chart, but I would say probably general, because it's about 13 to 1450 right now. So, it's really generally around the VTOL flight in Dubai, and, kind of on the back in the California Air Show, just continuing to prove out that VTOL technology. So
I'm just going to jump in here just so we don't cut across different topics we're going to talk about here.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm going to quickly do, I'm going to go back to YouTube because we have a few comments there, and then I'll get back to you guys. So, guys, anyone that wants to speak, feel free to just fire their hand up. Going back to YouTube, we have Kadesh says Archer. Howard Pratt says Joe Ben for sure. He's investing both. He doesn't care which. Top Milch says if Joby will produce approximately 70 Jobys S4s by 2028, the certification for freezing conditions won't affect business expansion for a while. Ken says, I feel Adam is more talented as a CEO. I just feel Adam is not being honest in everything. I feel Joe Ben is being more transparent. There's less drama at Joby. Christian says, I'm holding my shares. Now, guys, anyone on YouTube, feel free to jump across to X, completely free. We have the spaces there to have your say. Now, guys, do fire up your hand there if you have any other thoughts. Question was, who is the better CEO, Adam versus Joe Ben? If not, we'll move on.
Even though I'm kind of taking the Joby perspective here,
Yep.
My vote for best CEO is probably going to be at Adam, because like it or not, he has the war chest, he's monetized, he's got the relationships. The CEO I like more is irrelevant to the CEO who's executing more effectively. So I would have to go with Adam there.
Thank you so much for that, Chris. Now, is there anyone else that wants to speak on Adam versus Joe Ben? If not, we'll go on to the next topic.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Yeah, go on. Go for it.
So,
okay.
I would say that Adam is definitely better at public relations and selling the product, right? But I don't think he's a better CEO in terms of, as Crispy was saying, and I talked about multiple times, actually executing and running a company that is moving forward and will be profitable in a shorter amount of time. And that's not me defending Joby. That's just me being honest. And I know that a lot of people don't like this comparison, but Adam reminds me of Trevor Milton from Nikola. And I'm not saying that to like disparage him. It's just a lot of promises, a lot of moving targets, a lot of PR, a lot of smoke and mirrors. And what I would like, because I'm invested in both, is I would like Adam to stop talking and actually develop a product that works, right? The partnership with Anduril is great. The purchase of Hawthorne Airport is great. But if you don't have a vehicle that works and you can't continue to promise flights and events and then backtrack from it, to me, that is the only knock on Adam Goldstein as the CEO, is sometimes just talk a little bit less, lower the temperature of what people expect from your company, and then deliver. So, but on the marketing side, Adam is significantly better. I don't think Joe Ben is a marketer. I think he's just an engineer who's going to build a company.
Thank you so much, Mister. And I want to jump in and say congratulations on them calls for Archer. I think two of us made a nice bit of money there. So, no, big shout out, my guy. No, that was great thoughts there. I can 100% get where you're coming from. Adam is a salesman. 100% he's a salesman. Joe Ben, on the other hand, is not a salesman. And yes, he's not as great at marketing, but as a CEO, it doesn't really matter whether you're good at marketing or not. So I do like the aspect of Adam on some occasions with his PR push. On other occasions, I can be doubtful. With Joe Ben, yeah, look, I can't really take away from him. As a CEO, I don't really care whether he can market or not, as long as he guides the company in the right place. Dylan, you have your hand up there. Jump in, my guy.
Oh, thank you. And Matt, great points there. And I just wanted to kind of ask you one question kind of on that. So with Adam, like you said, with kind of the promising and such, do you think that comes from a place, and this could be rhetorical, hypothetical, whatever you choose to respond. Do you think Adam comes from a place where just genuinely in his heart, he's looking to pull it blindly over the investors? Or do you think that he's made poor decisions in who he has hired on his engineering team, or like a disconnect maybe in what his engineering timeline is then been giving to him? So just kind of curious how you feel, being that he's not the one on the ground floor doing the design and engineering, just kind of to the timelines and having him build out that team that, I'm sure that he trusts, just kind of how you feel maybe on that side, if you have any thoughts.
Yeah. So for me, it's a little bit of both, right? I think it's I think Adam is trying to, and I don't want to use the word ride the coattails. I think Adam is trying to get people behind his company, and he is a great salesman, and that's great, right? He ran a hedge fund, he made a lot of money, he knows how to persuade and influence people. That's his specialty. Great, he does a good job. Do I think he hired the wrong people? No, I think he tried to take shortcuts. And again, everybody thinks that I'm anti-Archer or anti-Adam, but I'm not. I think he's continuing to try to take shortcuts, including the purchase of the Ilium patents. I think that he is not an engineer, and by not being an engineer, maybe doesn't understand the intricacies of what it is taking to develop an eVTOL that can actually transition. And I think that, like I said, I think that's why I wish he would be a little bit quieter, and sell the company when there's something to sell. But that being said, I also understand you have to develop revenue, you have to get the PR push behind you. And I think after making the promises of the LA Olympics, which I will go on record of saying, I give them a 10% chance to be operating in 2028. I think after making the promise of the Olympics, he has to keep the PR side up. He has to keep people behind him, and he has to keep the money flowing, or else there is no way for them to continue and make that deadline. And I'm saying that from, to be totally honest, a point of, and I don't like to say where I live, but I will say that I live close enough to both the Joby Marina facility and the Salinas Airport, where Archer has a large presence, that I can weekly keep tabs on them, because I travel for work a lot, and the feeling within the communities in both airports is radically different, where you don't see a lot of activity at the Salinas Airport with Archer, and you see constant flights coming in and out of Marina with Joby, and just the communities themselves feel differently about it.
Mark, thank you very much for that there. I'm Anowith on YouTube says, hi guys, for me, it's not who is the seller, but who delivers, and Joe Ben delivers. Chris, do you want to jump back in there?
I think that comes back to my original point. Real G's move in silence like lasagna. Like Archer is much better at spinning the narrative. It's much better at capitalizing on the story. It's much better at accumulating the war chest. But when it comes to actually putting planes in the air, that's where I think we're going to see the difference.
Chris, I'm going to remember that quote. That actually made me laugh. Guys, is there anyone new that wants to jump in and have their thoughts? Who is the better CEO, Adam vs. Joe Ben, or I'll move straight to the next one? I'll give you 30 seconds to jump across there. Christian White says...
I think we've hit about 45 on this one. Might want to...
Yep, all good. So, the next topic is who has the better partners and backers? Is it Archer or is it Joby? Who wants to go first?
I'll jump in. I think on paper, I think Archer has the better partners with Andrel, Palantir. I'll leave it there. There's some other rumored partners that I don't think ever come to fruition, but those two partners, at least on paper, are great. They could all three be great companies, but more on the quieter side, and I talked about it on a space earlier today. The partnerships that Joby is making, I think, go under the radar. They're not the big PR flashes, right? Like the partnerships with Delta, the partnerships in the UAE, the partnerships with Metropolis for parking garages and development of vertiports, and just the infrastructure that some of their partnerships own or could own aren't the flashy, like flash in the pans, but I think in terms of development operation, they will put one company in a better position to operate than the other.
No, thank you so much for that. Chris, do you want to jump straight in?
I'd say the most critical partnership here, and I do agree with Mister's kind of like out like viewing the chessboard here and seeing Palantir and Anduril significant. But I think the most significant partnership that we have to consider is Stellantis versus Toyota, and I'll pick Toyota hands down any day.
Look, I'm extremely bullish on Archer Aviation, but even I have to admit that Toyota is far superior of a partnership than Stellantis is. I would like to hear a little bit more about Stellantis. Seems to have gone quiet since Carlos Tavares stepped down as CEO. Dylan, do you want to jump straight in there?
Muted. Thank you. Okay, cool. So yeah, partnerships, I think I'll break them down in parts of kind of better, shared, and kind of how I feel on those as well. With the Toyota partnership to Stellantis, like I've always said, if this was a 5-on-5 basketball game, and we're taking first pick, and it was manufacturer came up, Toyota slam dunk or Joby slam dunk, got that with Toyota. One thing that kind of bounces around my head and kind of I think about the Toyota partnership is again the tranches of money that are given over to Joby. So again, yes, there's been a lot of silence in the Stellantis partnership, and I've kind of noodled through some different things on kind of what is the need or what Archer's true kind of need, whether it's talent, manufacturing space, manufacturing experience, or such that they would need from Stellantis to come over. So if you look at 2025, where if you look at the manufacturing partners, one being basically silent with continued operations moving forward for Archer. So Stellantis being silent, Archer continuing to push forward in their build, able to still manage and maintain the highest cash position in the industry. Where you look at Joby with Toyota, I believe it was 2 trenches of money, so about $500 million from Toyota this year, and then with again the dilution coming in, I think it was around $560 million, to where your war chest in Joby basically has been replenished through 2025. I would love to hear more on Stellantis, but again, if Archer Aviation has continued to push forward, be it either with cash or manufacturing abilities, which again, maybe with the Palantir partnership, very curious, as again with Hawthorne acquisition, it does sound like there may be some either training or some advancement in the ATC system that Palantir will be working with Archer on, and having that Class B airspace and the active FAA tower can really kind of go into the continued relationship with them. But I'm also curious on the Palantir side, if there's any integration on the Palantir, if there's any boot camps that were run on what's now considered the Golden Line in California for the manufacturing. And then that's being moved over to the company in Georgia facility, where again, I think with Adam, he was very forward thinking on needing a manufacturing facility to be able to have the ability to ramp up and serve his customers and partnerships. I think on the airlines, I think net positive for both Archer with United and Southwest, Joby with Delta. I believe they have, I don't know if it's just straight called Virgin versus Virgin Galactic over in UK. So awesome actually to see the the airliners where you actually had United out at SFO this year, putting on an event with Archer. So you've actually been seeing the partnership with United, really having the representatives from United still stay in the light with Archer and promoting those events as well. When we get to the defense partnerships, you kind of had that first led by Archer getting the Anduril partnership and actually having something come to fruition with that this year, next to like an L3 partnership with Joby, which I kind of think at the end of the day was something that was needed to happen. You were going to need to find a prime defense partner. So the Joby was going to have the same DoD opportunities that ultimately some of the other eVTOL companies, if they were to partner with these kind of legacy DoD contract companies as well. And then you do come on to the one-off partnerships where you have like Mac was talking about. I'm going to say it wrong, but the metropolitans and stuff as the vertiport build outs continue to go out. But I do like, you can even, and this is where you can see some crossing over in between in between the two companies within inside of the same industry, where you have partnerships with like JetX. So you can look at continued vertiport build out or infrastructure build out for one can be both of those aircrafts possibly being used. And then again, I just want to highlight the partnership with Signature Aviation that Archer Aviation has. And I like that because it is a bit, like I've said, in that trinity of partnership where it does bring them to having the CCS charging ports. So Beta is a partner with Signature Aviation. Signature Aviation operates about 200 FBOs and one of the largest global FBO operators. So as they continue to partner with Beta and implement those CCS chargers, that again is going to be a net positive as Archer is able to charge off those same charging networks. So again, you also have Archer partnered with Falcon Aviation, Etihad Aviation, Keiko Mobility, Interglobe Enterprises, Safran. You have the partnerships where they are outsourcing from like GKN, Molicel for the battery technology for the wings. Yeah, go for it if somebody wants to.
But like I know you know the full list of every like kind of like third party vendor. I think we should keep it to the big stuff. Like Joby has Toyota. The golden line that you speak of was a Toyota innovation. If you've ever heard of lean manufacturing, that was invented by Toyota. We're looking at actual partnerships that matter. We have Uber. I think that's a significant one that has not been mentioned yet.
All right, and Chris, I appreciate you cutting me off. So let me jump in on Uber. I think what we have Kevork, they came over. It's hard to get rid of that IP. We'll see the lawsuit play out. The thing that I love about Uber Elevate is Archer has Nikhil Goyal, who actually wrote the white paper for Uber Elevate and how the UAM basically can transform and take place. So yeah, the partnership with Uber Elevate is great, and that's a great expansion for Uber and their business line as well. But again, that's going to be dependent on manufacturing capabilities of the S4 as well as FAA approval.
And that's why we have Toyota.
On which side? You're just talking about for the manufacturing capability?
Yeah, Toyota invented lean manufacturing. The golden line that Archer is utilizing comes from Toyota.
So, and I guess we'll just go to the raw stats on it. Let's see. Joby said they were going to have 4 per month on 2027, and both Archer aiming for 50 by that time. So we've kind of
those are promises. Those are not deliverables.
Yeah. So I'm just my point, Chris, is actually just speaking to where. With both companies, I think we're looking at a higher ramp getting into the 500 plus by the 2028s. And I'm just kind of bringing that kind of back down to earth for everybody, where you've gotten guidance on both companies, where you're not going to be getting really that mass scale production inside of those really prior to 2028 years. So
but you can't get mass scale on either company until you have TIA certification, because the more that you're building out planes before you're certified, the more you're prone to rework.
And that's why I love that Archer Aviation is forward thinking, building out the manufacturing facilities so that when TIA comes and they can build the same, whatever Mark used to say, the same ship number 4 off the line is going to be the same as ship number 400. We're kind of already putting those into place, just as Joby is looking to build out that Daytona factory as they're starting to produce the wings there. So continuing to see that build up for the possible manufacturing ramp up as well. So, yeah.
No, I think XTI is the sleeper here. That's my play. Just derailing.
Everyone keeps talking about XTI. I'm going to keep it with this topic at the moment, but
no,
Mac.
I really think XTI is nothing. That was mostly a joke.
Mac,
yeah,
do you want to speak?
Yeah, so as somebody who's toured the Joby facility twice, they probably have the capability right now to build 1.5 to 2 vehicles a month right now if they had certification. So for Joby to say that they're going to double capacity, and it's not double capacity in 2027, it's double capacity by 2027, which is significantly different. Meaning that they may achieve that prior to 2027 if they get TIA certification. I don't think it's as far as a stretch. Yeah, numbers are numbers, right? I don't think it's as far as a stretch to say that that's unachievable with the Toyota manufacturing knowledge, the way that the facility in Marina is set up, including the new building that they're about to open. And I do know that one of the reasons that Joby has delayed operations or full operations of the new building in Marina is they're perfecting the assembly line before they do it. And then the same thing with Dayton, right? So I will be, again, going back to the previous topic, I think Joe Ben and Joby are making, I don't want to say promises, but announcements that they believe are achievable versus kind of more pie in the sky, right? It's easier to say that you could double production when you are producing a vehicle that flies than say you're going to build 100, 200, 500 vehicles when you're not close to certification, you're not building a vehicle that eVTOLs, and you're not actively flying a vehicle to get that certification. So that to me, I think, is a factor that people are forgetting. Again, I think it comes down to Adam being a great salesman, but not a great engineer or not an engineer, and not running a company that appears to be viable, regardless. So, and yeah, Nick Isle coming from Uber Elevate is great. I know that people are going to say I'm a homer when I say this. It's another example of Archer trying to cut corners and recruit people to develop things that have already been developed by another company. And I would just get back to Archer needs to really stop making promises and just build something that works.
Thank you so much for that, Mac. Chris, was your hand up again, or was that just from before?
That was just from before, I believe.
No, 100%. Thank you so much, guys. What I'll do, because I know we're pushing on the time now, I'll go straight into the next one, but first, I'll just read out a few of the comments here. Iman OS says, Joby for me, Toyota, Delta, Japan, and vertiports. Christian says, where have we got you? Chilling with Dylan. Iman OS, will Joby sell Superpilot as a platform to other companies? May Superpilot be a new revenue stream? Potentially, but with Superpilot, who's going to own the rights to that? Is it going to be NVIDIA through the IGX4, or is Joby going to own the rights to the data there? I really don't know. Then the next question is, who is the better path to commercialization, Archer or Joby? Who wants to go first?
I'll jump in. I think it depends on how you define commercialization. Joby's come out originally and said that they plan to operate. They've later revised it to operate and sell. Archer has always been more of a sell, but at some point I think they're going to have to operate something. So I think it depends on how you define commercialization. If commercialization is more like the Boeing strategy where you're building vehicles for other people to operate, we'll see. If commercialization is actually flying people in certified vehicles, I think Joby has the lead in that commercialization sector.
Yeah, I think profitability might be a better metric.
Yeah, sure. So no, definitely don't disagree with much that's been said so far. And so if we're saying path to commercialization, actually, Mac, I give you that credit on looking to further define what commercialization really means. You know, is it owning and operating and running your own air taxi fleet, or is it being able to have a profitable business, you know, and bringing revenue through the door? And if it's, you know, you're having a sale of these aircraft to you, again, your airline partners and such, you know, is that quote unquote a path to commercialization? Or, you know, like we may be spending it towards a profitable network as well. I think, again, I can be an Archer bull, but doesn't mean that that I have blinders on. We have seen that Joby has done a piloted flight in Dubai. And again, we have guidance from both companies and with inside the GCAA that we're looking for minimally market survey flights in the path to commercialization to start in Q3 2026. So with that, I think again we have a few canaries in that coal mine of seeing what's going to lead up to as we work through type certification and what can come at to the Innovate 28 initiative through the FAA, where if again the guidance that is being given, because right now we can go off the guidance that's given, so we know Joby has a VTOL capability aircraft sub 4,000 pounds that can fly and do a piloted demonstrate expedition flight in Dubai. So I would expect for them to be able to have that by Q3. I think the question would be on the manufacturing side, as Joby's going to have to retain some of the aircraft for type certification. If they do want to have some of the aircraft on hand for, if they need to deliver any more to the AFWERX program. So just kind of figuring out how Joby wants to slice the pie up of the build of aircraft as we kind of get more into, I would say, like late fall into kind of the US winter months and such like that. And so again, with Archer, path to commercialization, I would say would again be the sale of aircraft. So it will be interesting when we get to the Q3 and Q4s and we start to look at, the 10Qs and the revenue books. If these companies are both to deliver on guidance where they're entering into service into UAE in Q3 2026, again, if it's a path to commercialization of an air taxi network, you're probably going to have Joby take the lead in that. Again, there's always going to be the pros and cons where if you're not selling the aircraft, one, you take on the cost of the build. You're then maybe taking on some of the cost of the MRO, and continuing to have enough aircraft out there to run a profitable air taxi network, as opposed to if in the beginning days. And I'm not sure if Joby's going to flip to this, but Archer being more in the sale of the aircraft. So if they're able to sell 234 aircraft to UAE at the $5 million clip, that could be a $10 to $20 million first move opportunity for Archer in that path towards, again, kind of air quoting, quote unquote, commercialization. And then again, kind of with the canary in the coal mine on that, if we are to see, or I can be bullish and say when we are to see piloted VTOL test flight campaign in Q1, moving into the Q3 of the UAE conversation we were just having, if they're having piloted VTOL, and especially if they're doing that in UAE through the end of 26, and even if it's into early 27 and throughout 2027 performing those operations, it brings me more investor confidence that both one, Archer's going to be able to deliver on the Innovate 28 program. And that's not even to say that Joby won't be having certain aircraft flying if that airspace is cleared for, quote unquote, air taxi networks. Again, at that point, each of the companies is going to have to figure out, do they have the infrastructure? Do they have the vertiport build out, the charging network to support the type of flights that they're wanting to do in the respective cities at that time?
Thank you so much for that, Dylan.
But again, I think that comes down to what's. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. Go on, Chris. Go for it.
Oh, I was going to say that again comes back to like what's promised. Like why haven't the VTOL and the transition flights been demonstrated so far? I think, do they have a fundamental engineering rework on their shoulders, or because I know they've been demonstrating the CTOL flight and they've been testing on CTOL flight for like an extended period of time. But I would think that if they had the ability right now, like in the plane, that they would be demonstrating that now. But the other aspect, I think the reason why I say profitability versus commercialization, I think profitability might be a better metric for Archer to attain through selling powertrains, through operations at Hawthorne Airport, through the ATC systems. I think they have a lot more avenues of profitability that might be able to shore up their long-term goals of getting to like a commercial flight. But yeah, I think that there's more surface exposure for Archer to get to profitability in any metric. But Joe, as far as commercialization of vehicles like and the air taxi like thesis, I think Joby is further along. But I think Archer might be able to get profitable beforehand through their relationships, through their partnerships, and through their diversified revenue streams.
Dylan, did you want to jump back in there?
You know, I did it, but it was like on the first sentence that Chris said, and I totally like spaced out on what I was going to say. So all good.
I could
If Chris
remind
says it
you.
again.
I was speaking to like, why have we not seen demonstrations of vertical
Oh yeah,
takeoff
yeah,
and
yeah. No, no,
transition
no,
flight
no.
and testing?
And absolutely. And again, you know, it's again, I would say a year and a half ago, whether it was what my ears wanted to hear or whether it was the guidance that was being given. There was different, and we know that the two blade design did not work for Archer. And so to the flight demonstrator or to the aircraft that's over in UAE right now, you know, we've been shown that it's had the four blade aft props. So they're doing the unmanned test campaign, the VTOL transition test campaign out in UAE right now. So that's again, you know, going to collect the data as they're, you know, dealing with all the sand and the hot weather, you know, and all that, those kind of variables that you're not dealing with here on your US test flight campaigns and such like that. So really it's just kind of for me building off these test flight campaigns. I know for me, I was not loving that Archer was doing a CTOL test campaign. But when I expanded my view on, or expanded my knowledge, I guess you would say, on other eVTOL companies, one that I did always have an eye on was Beta, and just hearing that they did run their aircraft through a CTOL test campaign and to see where they are actually at now in the amount of nautical miles that they've been able to fly, whether it be CTOL or VTOL. I don't necessarily hate because I'm sorry, I don't necessarily hate where Archer is at. Understanding maybe the company better now than I did even a year ago, and also understanding that Joby is in the lead of this, so I don't expect, especially if Adam doesn't feel that he has a safe aircraft at the moment, that he's just going to rush to put a pilot just to show his investor base that I can pilot a VTOL and do a transition. So I would much rather wait 6 months, get the confirmed like they did, confirming the four blade aft, four, I would say weird, four rear bladed aft propellers getting switched out, and then running the test campaign with that, and then letting that fold into the guidance that we have now, which is going to be the Q1 VTOL for Archer, which is behind Joby, which again they started after Joby and so.
Guys, thank you so much for that. Then, jumping across. Who has the better defense and military opportunities, Archer or Joby? Who wants to go first? Chris?
I guess I can. I kind of consider it a wash. But I do think from a relationship basis, Archer does have the lead, but from an actual like military demonstration basis, Joby might have the lead. But the relationships that Archer has within the administration, with Anduril, with Palantir, I think that puts them in a lead for future potential. But I think as far as like actually like delivering delivering planes, like testing at Edwards, I think from a demonstration level, Joby might be ahead. But I think that's a different uphill slog. Whereas their partnership with L3 Harris is like with the traditional prime, and I'm seeing a lot of disruption in this industry. And I think the traditional primes are kind of being forced to share their lunch a lot more than they have before. So L3 Harris might have a little bit other kind of pressures at hand. Whereas Archer, I would definitely freely admit that Archer is making the right relationships with the right people, even though Anduril hasn't really gotten a wide amount of adoption in actual like contracts and actual like flight and actual like hardware being deployed. They are sitting in a very good position for expansion and development future contracts.
Thank you so much for that, Chris. Dylan, do you want to jump in? Just before you jump in, Dylan, we have Archer Defense Daily doesn't understand the format. So if you jump across to X spaces, you can raise your hand and then we'll get round to everyone that wants to speak. So what we're doing, we're asking questions and then anyone is open to raising their hand and having their ability to share their opinion. But Dylan, sorry to cut you off there. Who has the better defense and military opportunities?
Never sorry, never sorry. No. And I do agree with a lot of Crispy sentiment on this one. Just again with the different kind of forward-looking, kind of futuristic partnership where you kind of have two companies with Anduril and Archer both proven out technologies that either haven't been proven out before on a battlefield or with inside of aerospace, and really, U.S. government having to take a look at the just really the benefit of what this new player in town is compared to the classic Northrops, Lockheeds, and L3 Harris and such. So I would say that with Archer, I'm a little bit more excited about their defense opportunity. Although Joby does have the aircraft at Edwards, and you've seen the partnership with L3. To me, just from the time of getting the partnership to actually having something come to fruition, and I know it was the electric powertrain and not the full aircraft, but we really have been able to see something actually come to fruition from the defense partnership with Andrew and Archer. And it seems like, again, with the anybody feel free to fill in what I'm missing on this, but the expansion of Andrew and UK with the GKN partnership going on, which again, we know Archer is already well kind of poised with, as GKN does the wings and wing components for Archer. And then we've had some recent news about that. So kind of not just even having the U.S. exposure to defense, maybe even possibly having a multi-country exposure to defense opportunity, as we also saw that the Omen systems were actually 50 of those were contracted to UAE. And yeah, I mean, just again, I have to lean a little bit on just what my eyes are seeing. And my eyes are seeing that Adam is constantly at the White House with Secretary Duffy. And, you know, maybe again, as a CEO that does not need to be on the ground on the engineering floor, gives him the opportunity to go out and develop those relationships, foster those, and grow those into the ones that are needed for urban air mobility, and the lean in with Secretary Duffy. And it might be corny to some, but again, this was not. I would take a big guess that this was not Adam's decision, and this was either the administration or just Secretary Duffy. Where again, at the Paris Air Show, when you had the announcement of I think it was the Five Eyes coming together. Again, what I say, who did Duffy want, or who did Duffy have and or want him standing next to him? It was Adam G. And then he passed the mic right to him and let Adam know it wasn't Duffy that said, hey, this is the bat signal going off for the eVTOL network. He passed the mic on over to Adam to do that. So yeah, just with Adam continuing to push in the White House and continue to, I think, have that foresight on what the roadblocks and kind of the speed bumps in the industry are, and figuring out his ways, whether it's through tapping into the GCAA or providing the support to Andrew. And we was not able to hear a lot on the earnings calls previous about that, but we did learn that the Omen system and the electric powertrain was about a 12-month project, as they actually have been working on an aircraft project for about 12 to 18 months. So I know initially it was like, oh, is this the project that they're working on? But we did get a little further clarification that that was just one of the projects that these two companies were working on together.
Thank you so much. And then, Chris, do you want to jump back in?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of like follow on, because as much as I'm trying to take the Joby side of the argument, because I didn't feel like there was enough representation.
Yeah.
I do think that Archer does have some significant like tailwinds as far as the like everything that Dove's set up and I spoke of. But to speak to just the Anduril specifically, that Omen project was like if you look at Anduril's demo about how much work they put into that Omen project, I think Archer actually came in and solved like some powertrain issues for them. And that was just kind of like, if you take one thing from Archer's like kind of product portfolio, is they built their own kind of powertrain systems. They've customized it, they built it for their applications. And I think just far beyond the Omen aircraft, there's much more applications that Anduril can take that proven powertrain that they're working with and apply it across a broader spectrum of products. And I think that's just the beginning of the relationship there. Me and Dylan kind of joke back and forth about Mothra, which is a rumored Anduril Archer project to essentially be a mothership that deploys drones like en masse. And I think we're going to see some larger airframe systems that Anduril is going to deploy. Anduril's they're kind of major, like I'd recommend anybody look at the Molly O'Shea like interviews at Anduril and look at their kind of like production methodologies and their kind of like systems that they're building. And just thinking about where Archer can kind of plug in, the Archer Anduril partnership, as far as the larger airframes, is not going to be taking one of the Archer Midnights and then just slapping some drones and missiles to it and calling it a day. It's going to be a fundamental, like, new design. It's going to be a partnership as far as, and that's going to take like a significant amount of time. Whereas the Omen was an existing project that Anduril was trying to build out, which is a vertical takeoff, large format drone. And they were able to slap in the Archer powertrain, get that thing up and operational through their partnerships with was it PDC or PD? I can never remember that company over in the Emirates. But so they were able.
Edge.
Sorry, Dylan. Oh, Edge. Yeah. No, it's different Edge than, like, because Edge Autonomy is the one.
Oh, I'm
that's owned by
sorry.
Radar.
I'm sorry.
It's like,
I'm sorry, Chris.
it's EDC, PDC. I can't. I'm not in front of a computer. I'm kind of just going off memory on all this. But
Oh,
so
you're
like,
doing great.
that's a pretty decent partnership they're going, and they're demonstrating the technology through like an existing Anduril design. So we haven't seen the actual collaboration, and I think we will see that. And yep, Anduril does a great job in their demo videos, and I think it's going to be very interesting. Whereas Joby does have some hardware in the skies at Edwards Air Force Base. That is an impressive feat, but we're talking about like who wins in this kind of like a military partnership and future potential for the military applications. I'm going to have to go Archer.
Now, just before I let Dylan back in here, guys, anyone that wants to have their say, just fire their hand up. The question is, who has the better defense and military opportunities, Archer or Joby? Dylan, do you want to jump back in?
Yeah, and I think Chris brings up a great point, and it kind of can bring me both sides, where it seems in ways that Joby's, excuse me, their tech may be more proven out, and maybe just trying to find that right use case for DoD to kind of bring that into the fold. But Chris, I'm just kind of curious, maybe your thoughts as you are so entrenched, like in the drone space, and tapped in with just kind of administration and everything you spoke on. If you were Palmer, and or you're running Anduril, and you have the partnership with Archer that started, I can look at the date, but well over, I would say, a year now. Do you think in any way, and it's again the whole like pulling the wool over the sheep's eyes or whatever, do you think in any way that this partnership would be continuing, and or do you think there would be signs of the partnership ending if Anduril did not see a true VTOL aircraft technology potential, or something shown out through Archer, as opposed to just giving them more like quote unquote time, to prove it out or something? Would you see? I don't know. What would you take to see? I don't know.
Are you saying like where what would you look for cracks in the relationship, or where would you think that maybe?
Either that, or just in the sense with with us not as a public seeing piloted VTOL, and just kind of where if that wasn't a what's the word? Someone with a T on it. But if that technology couldn't be proven out by Archer, so like let's say they could not VTOL a plane, right? Do you think that Palmer would still be basically still leaning in towards, or would that be kind of signaling that, hey, I need to go find me, another VTOL operating partner, and basically detach themselves from Archer? So just basically, if they're still in the fold with Archer, does that give you any confidence that there is that VTOL technology, so they can come around the corner and say the next 6 months maybe?
I would say that like we still haven't seen the fruits of that relationship, and I do think that it's not going to be a midnight with an Anduril logo. I think they're working on something much larger, much more integrated, and much more kind of like, because one thing that Anduril has in partnership with Palantir is they're like the Titan, like kind of mobile operations center, where you have like, because the fundamental like moat that Anduril has is their lattice system of like situational awareness across multiple units, drones, systems that can interoperate and create like a field of view. I'd recommend everybody go look at the Eagle Eye system. But what I see like the potential Archer Anduril kind of partnership is pretty much like a flying version of the Titan that's also like a drone mothership, where you can like deploy situational awareness in the skies at various altitudes. I don't know if it's going to be the eVTOL, if it's going to be conventional or a pure VTOL, but I think that they have some potential there for that future like kind of airborne command system. Because if you look at some of the current like command systems that we have that are just like you take a 737, you slap a big big like sensor stack on top of the top of it, you know what I mean? I think they're trying to build something fundamentally new, and I don't think that it's necessarily dependent upon the success of the Midnight of demonstrating flight and transition flight and all that. I do think Archer will eventually get there, but I'm just worried that they're kind of like papering over some fundamental flaws or some types of like rework that they need to do. That they're just kind of like, oh, we'll get there, we'll get there, we'll get there. Whereas like maybe that the fixed rear vertical systems is not worth the drag penalty, and that they're like slowly reworking it by going with 4 rotors as opposed to 2, or through their what I think is much more interesting is when you'll probably remember it, Dylan, but that one other company that they acquired the IP from the same time that they acquired, I think it's Blade or something like that.
Over Air.
Over Air. Because if you look at Over Air's patent portfolio, they have rotors where you can actually manipulate the positioning of the rotor. And so I think if they can get that to where they can kind of like tune the rotor positions, they might be able to get to something where that drag penalty actually becomes a benefit. Depends upon like the degrees of motion in which you can manipulate those rotors. But I think they probably captured something in that IP portfolio that it's going to take time for them to implement. Or there could be some other kind of potential there that I think is getting slept on. Like the Lilium patents, I don't really find anything interesting. I think the ducted wing kind of like is not necessarily like anything they're going to rework their design to incorporate. But the over air tilted rotor IP, I think is much more promising as far as like implementing solutions to their kind of like rear drag penalty or their conventional transition flight, whatever. Which they're getting a lot of data. I'll agree with you on conventional like flight. And I think that the other aspect of the Anduril kind of portfolio is Archer is very good at aggregating that data, of learning from that data, of collecting that data. And I think there's a benefit of having that huge data set to bring to the Anduril relationship, whereas Anduril doesn't have the same level of flight data outside of their Fury, their CCA, or some other ones, which are a completely different ballgame.
Thank you so much for that, Chris. Now, Mac, I will jump on to you in 2 seconds. But guys, do smash that like button. Smash the subscribe button. Smash the follow button. We're going to do more of these spaces going forward. I actually really enjoyed this format, but do let me know if you're enjoying it. So, question again is, who has the better defense or military opportunities, Archer or Joby Aviation? Mac, did you want to jump back in?
Yeah, so it's not a direct answer to the question, but I think Crispy and Dylan touched on something, and I have a little bit different spin on it. The Anduril Archer partnership, I think, is great, but the question that I have is Archer becoming now a parts manufacturer for Anduril, and will they have the capability and the ability to actually produce the Midnight the way they have promised their investors they would do, or does that partnership with Anduril start to take over? And that's yet to be determined. And I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing, but if you're an investor in an eVTOL and your eVTOL company starts becoming a parts manufacturer for another company, that's not the same thing that you've sold to your investors. And you know, I think the Omen is super awesome, and I'm not going to knock that. I think Archer is really lucky to be in that partnership. But I also think that there are certain Archer investors that are advertising that announcement as something that Archer did versus the 4 to 5 years that Anduril developed the Omen and then used the drivetrain from Archer. And those are significantly different selling points. So on the Joby side, Joby has obviously developed the hybrid system. They're in partnership with L3 Harris. Yes, it's a little bit more of a traditional prime. But and again, Joby has actually developed something for L3 Harris that functions, that can be used right now. not just a part that needs to go into another company's IP and product. And those, again, not trying to bash Archer for that, but they're both claiming to be eVTOL companies, not defense parts manufacturing companies.
That's a really valid point, Mac. Dylan, do you want to jump back in there?
Yeah, thank you, and I agree with you, Mac. That definitely. Oh, sorry, I put the hand up in. That was something that was definitely, was initially sold to me that these were going to be commercial air taxi network. And this may be a different view from other Archer investors or eVTOL investors. For me, the pivot to defense was one of the things that kept me kind of most geared up to success over this industry in the next, I would say, until the 27 to 28s. Because I think, again, if we're banking on just the FAA and the commercial air taxi network, for me, I guess if it goes back to question one on CEO, I'm okay with my CEO adjusting the business plan as long as that's going to be best for the investors in the company. Again, I had to even kind of shake my head a little bit and think, hey, I invested in Archer. This was going to be a zero emissions, kind of clean energy, clear the streets up, UAM coming, air taxi. And now I'm investing in a defense company. Like, honestly, it had those question marks above my head. But then I did just have to think in my investment lens, if this pivot towards defense and, with everything that's come with the change administration, what would kind of be the investment thesis over, having this be something that you're going to throw the dollars at outside of accumulation for the next kind of year to 2 years, as we basically are then just dependent on FAA and commercial air taxi launches at that point.
Do you know what? That's what really got me at when it pivoted to, well, not pivoted, expanded into the Archer defense side. It really got me. Am I now invested in a defensive company? So I really love that you've pointed that out. Chris, or Mac, did you have your hand up there first, or was that just back?
Oh yeah, that's just from before.
Oh yeah. So Chris, did you want to jump back in there?
Honestly, I would have invested in Archer as a defensive company from the gate a lot more than as a company. But like the way I see it is like you're looking at what can get profitability sooner. Like the drone industry knows this well. Like you're going to get much better capitalization through military contracting and the requirements. But to speak to Max, like parts is like I see that as them capitalizing on checkpoints on development roadmap. So you have a proven powertrain that's functioning. If you could start selling those at scale, like I don't think it really it actually refines their manufacturing capacity to be able to take the most critical components of your aircraft and deliver them at scale. Like we're talking about scale certification requirements, there's QA, there's production manufacturers, there's like how much area you can see, there's all the things that you can do when you're manufacturing the most critical component of your aircraft scales but a benefit to your future because you're proving that out years of battle hardened kind of like testing procedures.
I seem to have lost you there at the end, Chris. I don't know, is that just on my side? But Mac, did you have your hand up again?
Oh no. But thanks for coming back to me.
No, you're fine.
I think the defense side of Archer is great, right? I do. I'm not trying to bash it. But come 2027, mid 2020, or I'll say mid 2027, early 2027, if Archer can't follow up on their promises to serve the Olympics and have a functioning eVTOL, what is their company, right? And I'm not saying the defense side is bad. Yeah, I agree. I would invest in them if they were a defensive company also, but that's not what they've sold investors. And that's the worry that I have, is not that Adam and the CEO are able to pivot like the company direction. That's great. But what are people investing in, right? There are people that will invest in a defensive company and there are people that will not. There are people that are investing based on the promises that Archer has made, especially around the 2028 Olympics. And that is the deliverable that will drive their company. not a parts manufacturer for another defense company.
You're completely right there. Now, guys, before I get back to Chris, look, don't feel nervous. Just put your hand up if you want to have your say. It's completely open to absolutely anyone. Look, you don't need to be an engineer, a pilot, anything like that. Just if you have any thoughts on it, just put your hand up and jump into the chat here. Chris, is your hand back up there, or is that from before, my guy?
It was from before, but just to like talk about like the kind of the parts thing, I see the scaling of the powertrain and the amount that they can deploy that powertrain in different systems is nothing but a benefit for like the future eVTOL operations, just through production refinement, through quality assurance and testing, and also a lot of these companies. You need for especially for like certifications and maintaining certifications, you need to have hours of operation, and they're able to scale that outside of their own operations in a way that I think actually benefits the mission of like a air taxi, of like hitting that 2028 goals, because you're able to deploy your powertrains in a broad variety of units and scale that side of production, which if you're looking about like the actual size and capacity that you would need to be able to hit those kind of like parts orders and those kind of deliverables, you're getting the benefit of scaling and refining your production methodologies there. And you're also getting the benefit of deploying those at scale and refining the production processes for your eventual airframe.
That was a solid point there, Chris. Now, Dylan, I'm going to go back to you, and then, guys, what I'll do, I'll move on to the next question there, because I'm just looking at the time again. So, Dylan, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, real quick, just wanted to basically say I agree with you, Mac, on what you're saying on that 2028 catalyst. And again, just kind of want to point at the entry into service into GCAA, into the UAE. So just again, I think that that's something that we're going to have to keep our eye on and see if they are performing successful VTOL in late 26 and in 27 in UAE. I think that that can point towards hitting the mark on carrying some VIPs and dignitaries to appease the Innovate 28. But yeah, no, I think having the follow through on the exclusive air taxi partnership with the Olympics and Paralympics is incredibly crucial for the business plan that Archer has put out to the investors. And I think we'll start to see through the GCAA how the aircrafts are working as well.
Solid point again, my guy. Now, I'm going to move on to the next question. So, who has the better plans for international expansion? Is it Archer or is it Joby? Who wants to go first?
Well,
Yeah,
obviously,
go
I'm gonna go with Joby. I think their operations in South Korea, Japan, Australia, some of the super pilot flights they've done, the United States, the UAE, Dubai. I think the international partnerships and ability to scale internationally is greater for Joby.
Thank you, Mac. Chris, is your hand up there?
No, I think that was from
No.
before, and I think you guys know a lot more of the weeds of the internationals than I do.
No,
I
you're all
more look
good.
at the hardware.
No, you're all good. Dylan, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. And always just time to be honest. And so it's in who has the better plans for international expansion. Right now, I'm gonna go with Joby as the answer on that one. And just really quick to back that, I think just in the sense of Sky Sports and just what we've seen in the potential vertiport build out internationally, I do think Japan will be an interesting one where we have both of the, I mean, really in all these markets, we have both of the competitors looking to enter into service. But I do think with the proven out technology that Joby has now, they may be able to provide that service internationally prior to Archer. And I just wanted to check one thing and then I'll let this go. And just bear with me. Okay, and so I'm just Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe it's we'll figure out if it's a net positive. I'm just curious as Joby enters the Japan market, just kind of with Toyota and just any engineering that ends up coming out from just any of those countries as well. Just any kind of future to market aircraft that Toyota maybe in their home states, Honda kind of doing their thing on that side of the world too. But no, simple answer. I think that Joby is in the lead and will probably be doing market survey flights first. But again, we got guidance on both for Q3 2026. But anyway, short answer, Joby.
Dylan, I'm so happy we're aligned on that one because I thought I don't know how we'd talk our way out of this one. Joby definitely, I believe, are better positioned for international expansion at the moment. Guys, anyone else want to jump in? Does anyone think Archer is better positioned for international expansion? I'll give 30 seconds for people to jump in. Archer Defense Daily News says parts manufacturing seems ridiculous. Archer because 5 people can actually fit into the aircraft. My guy, jump across 2 spaces and have your say. You're welcome to come in. Chris, did you want to speak there?
Well, I was just going to say, if Dylan says Joby has the better positioning, I think we're able to move on because he's deeper in the weeds than anybody I know.
I 100% agree there. Dylan, did you want to say anything else?
Just on that though, and not to put the pressure on Joby, but if you're going to be the industry leader and if you're going to be the first into market, do it right, be successful. You're leading an industry that is not there yet. So I put Joby in the lead, but I do put it on the back of Joby to perform the market survey flights correctly and to make sure that they have a safe aircraft that they're taking to market as they do go international. Joby in the lead, but make sure they do it right.
Thank you so much for that.
I would submit that,
Yeah,
that Joby does most things right.
Then the next one. Who is better valued and we'll look at the risk potential. Who has the worst risk potential out of both of them? Archer or Joby? Best valuation and the biggest risk. Who wants to go first?
I don't know. I think it gets back to, for me, it gets back to the question of pathway to commercialization and profitability. Obviously, I think Joby is better positioned on valuation. They've shown they can produce vehicles that are actively flying. I think that's priced into the stock price. In terms of bigger risk, and I don't know if this will shock anybody, I think Archer has the bigger risk because they've made so many promises surrounding the Olympics. They've made so many promises on things that would be delivered, like 10 aircraft by the end of 2025 that is now pending on 10 days away from not coming through. And not to take a shot, but that's just the risk that they're facing by being so proactive and so boisterous with their promises and their guidance, and then having to constantly revise that guidance and move those dates. And I think that some of that risk is across both companies, right? I do agree with what Dylan has said before, and many other people. The sector has to succeed together, although there will be competition. I think that if Joby is able to get into operation even slightly in another country, and Archer is more geared towards the defense, I think that they will risk losing a mass amount of investors in valuation.
Good point there, Mark. Then we go across to Dylan.
Well, I guess first I'll just kind of say the joke or whatever, but I mean, if Archer again, if they lose too much more of the market cap, they can just buy themselves as a company. So with cash on hand versus the market cap, I think that to me, just in a sense of today's market buy and any sentiment baked into the company and still what they need to prove out, I think Archer is better positioned. They're selling at about a 2.5 to 3.5 times book value. You have Joby right now that's selling at a 15-to-1 price to book ratio. So again, for that, again, it's all going to depend on if you're a long-term holder or a short-term visionary on which market cap makes the most sense to you. Not, I don't mean that directly, but which market cap makes the most sense to you. And in that, if we've seen in the past in administration 1.0s where cabinet members can be switched over, secretaries of this and that can be switched over, and we got a lot of support from Secretary Duffy right now. And if something doesn't align with the president and Secretary Duffy, and if he was to be exited, it's not to say that we're going to have somebody champion and being out there every single day who's not only just speaking about UAM, but really the whole DOT transformation and the infrastructure rebuild going across the US. So on the Joby side, the risk that I see is really, I mean, the risk on both sides, but I mean, it's FAA dependent. So you have the build out and for the type certification. And I think it's important that, Joby is setting a standard that the FAA wants and not a standard that Joby basically wants to set for the industry. It's something that the FAA is, they're the ones in charge. Joby's not in charge of setting the standard of, what an operational eVTOL aircraft is. So, just at current valuations, I think that either stock could be chopped in half, but if one's chopped in half, I mean, it literally has the cash on hand and liquidatable assets to really make up its own market value. I do think an incredible bull run. It was, you have, I think you have a lot of the sentiment baked into what is going on with the company and what is to go on with the company. And I think when any of these companies don't hit their milestones or their catalysts, you are seeing the drawbacks. And with Archer not having the piloted VTOL, we saw that was a definite drawback in the stock price there. But really, I'm just outside of Archer not being able to perform a successful VTOL, which just for me, I have my belief that will be something that will be able to be done. And I don't expect any crazy redesign to have that happen. That basically Archer's stock price will fall in line and will basically have not just baked in DoD sentiment, but we'll have the real world, basically flight visual of the VTOL of the 704 Alpha X-ray. So yeah, just kind of which is better positioned. And again, cash on hand. Joby has, I would say, about a 4 to 5 quarter, burn rate, depending on what they do with their manufacturing facilities and how they decide to spend their money. As opposed to, I think, in some ways, even if they're behind on the build, Archer's been a little bit more forward thinking into some of the facilities that may need to be built, and then being able to have time to have those, fully assembled and retrofitted out to have the more mass production and the mass scale. So, I still think this is going to be a capital intensive business for both of the companies, and they're going to have to use their cash in the right way. So just again, with Archer having the leading liquidity position in the eVTOL sector, I'm just going to have to say that they're better positioned, and we're just waiting on the VTOL. And if that takes place, I'm just not really finding the holes in which Archer has not delivered on if they are to hit that point.
As always, Dylan, thank you so much for that. Chris, do you want to jump in there?
I would, but we had somebody that just jumped up, and I feel like I've taken enough speaking. So if Vanbit wants to throw his 2 cents, I can wait till after.
Vanbit, do you want to jump in there, my guy? Right, we'll jump back to Chris there.
As far as like a valuation and book, I haven't really done any like major kind of like comparisons there as far as like forward PE ratios and like cash to EBITDA and all that fun stuff that really goes into saying who has a stronger financial position. But I think from a strategic aspect, just as both you guys know, I'm not invested in these plays. I'm really kind of speaking from an observer, from like a guy who has been in this industry. but I mostly follow it through Dylan and Hustle Brothers. You know, like I mostly, you guys are like kind of my sources. I do still follow the industry across decks, and I do appreciate all the content and all the kind of like the faith and the conviction that you guys are building in these plays. But I'd say from a strategic perspective, I think Joby is much further along in terms of their certification, and I feel like I don't have to like play devil's advocate so much right now. But from a strategic aspect, I think Archer is positioning in a way that a few people are kind of recognizing in monetizing their development chain. So if you think of like the deal with Anduril, okay, they're selling powertrains, they're monetizing that element of their development. If you're looking at the Hawthorne Airport, they're monetizing any type of like software related to air traffic control systems, testing, it just like even like eVTOL operations, like they're already kind of monetizing a leg of their business right now. And I think that they're continuing to make like strategic moves, whereas like you could say that that's a distraction from their core mission, but I would say that's a methodology of monetizing their roadmap in a way that I think just is like a broader vision. And I think that with their current like war chest, the amount of cash they have on hand, and the acquisitions that they're making that are kind of accretive, it's I do not like the Lilium patent. I think is like kind of like a not a big deal, but like their that I can't remember the name of the composites company that they acquired, but you look at some of the autoclaves that they have. You look at the over air patent gathering. I think they're doing much more to have more monetizable milestones rather than like going straight for the golden ticket in an all or nothing manner. Because when you go straight for the golden ticket, you're dealing with like 12, 18-month time horizons where you're either forced to like continue to dilute, or you're forced to continue to like kind of like falter if you can't hit execution strategies. And these things are expensive. These things are big. This hardware is hard, and that's for a reason. And I think strategically, Archer is positioning a little bit better as far as monetizing the roadmap, and I like that strategy.
Chris, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Guys, anyone else want to jump in and speak before I wrap the debate up? Nope. Right, so guys, I want you, please, more than ever, jump across to X. We've had our three speakers there. We've had Crispy or Vasi and C. We've Chris there. Chris is not only mad knowledgeable about this whole eVTOL sector, he actually focuses in heavily on the drones. So do jump across, follow Chris. Mr. Mac, look, he is unbelievable. He's just like, do you know what? He's not just like us. He's better than us when it comes to getting the information out about not only Archer, not only Joby, but the whole eVTOL space. So do jump across to Mac. And then, look, I know I'm a little bit biased here, but you got to jump and follow Dylan. Dylan is Dylan 11. I believe he's the GOAT in this space. So do jump across and follow Dylan there. Now, I'm going to mute spaces for a second, my guys. Right, so this has been a debate on Archer versus Joby. It actually went very well. Guys presented their points across very well. They were very respectful to each other, and this is exactly how it should be. Look, there's always going to be differences between Archer and Joby. They're two completely different businesses. But this is exactly how we should go about it. Whether you're an Archer bull, whether you're a Joby bull, it doesn't mean you have to dislike each other. And I think sometimes it comes across as life or death kind of scenario where people are just getting at each other personally, and it shouldn't be like that. So look, we're going to open some more forums like this where I think maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks or so, we'll do debates, whether it's on eVTOLs, whether it's on a decision Archer make, whether a decision Joby make. We can touch on a few. I know loads of guys are starting to talk about vertical aerospace now, so we can start speaking about vertical aerospace as well. Do make sure to bang the subscribe button. do make sure to bang the follow button because we will start doing more and more days. Now, I do have an announcement. I'm looking for December 23rd. What I'm going to do, we planned to do it last year. We didn't do it. We're going to do a Christmas live stream. It's going to be a hustle, brother, more or less a chill party. Look, get your beers out. I'll probably have a beer here. We're going to talk about the industry, what's happened over the past year, where we can see the stocks going. It's going to be a lot more chilled out. We'll get to know each other. I could even open a spaces where everyone can have a chat. I really don't mind. I don't care who you are, where you're from. Don't care whether you have $1 million invested, whether you've nothing invested. If you enjoy this space, you're welcome to come in and have a chat with us. Well, guys, my name's Liam. I am one of the Hustle Brothers. I will see you, the 23rd is in 2 days' time. So, yeah, 2 days' time, I'll be live. I will be banging videos out, as always. Dylan, my guy, jump across to StreamYard. We'll have a chat. Chris, I want to thank you so much. Mac, you have been a gentleman. You guys are always welcome on any sort of video or any sort of spaces. Guys, until then, we'll see you.